Welcome. Today we're going to use VirtualBox to set up an an Ubuntu server. Initially we're going to set up the configuration for the virtual machine, and then we'll install Ubuntu Server. We'll follow that in other videos in relation to setting up Ubuntu Desktop, connecting the machines together and configuring both of them, one from command line and one from a graphical interface. So to get ourselves started, we need to create a new virtual machine. And as normal, we'll give the machine a name, and I'm going to call this Ubuntu 1. And you can see it already has selected Linux, Ubuntu 64, and we have our destination location. We'll leave the memory at 1 gig. We don't need that much memory. And we'll create a new virtual hard disk now. We'll leave it as VDI as opposed to VHD. We'll leave it dynamically allocated, and we'll only use up 10 gig of space. It's going to be a very small machine. Once we've that done, we can go to the settings, and we have our normal information, which I've spelled wrong. Ubuntu 1. It's a bad day. Ubuntu 1. We can look at our system. We don't need a floppy drive. We can take that off. Our display, we can increase the amount of video memory if we want. Our storage is our first area. We can see we've got one hard drive here. And if we want to, we can add a second hard drive. In this case, we just click on our controller and we can click on add a new drive. So create a new disk. Again, we leave it VDI, dynamically expanding, and a second 10 gig disk. So we have two hard drives, slightly incorrect names, but we can see what they're doing. We then come down to networking, because we want to enable two different network adapters in this environment. The first network adapter is going to be using NAT, which means that it will be NATed out to the public network. The second adapter, however, is going to be used as an internal network, and we'll use that one then to connect to our client machine. There's nothing else we need really to do within the adapters. Once we select it and make sure that we have clicked on enable a network adapter, that means that Ubuntu should detect two network adapters. We don't need anything else in here, so that's fine. Now come back to our settings and go to our storage, because this is where we need to specify the location of the disk. And as you can see, I have Ubuntu 16.04 server AMD 64 ISO available. Otherwise, I can go and I can browse out to a location. You can see I have it in a folder called Ubuntu. So I'm going to select server AMD 64 for the server environment and click OK. Once we've that done, we can simply click on start, and we should see our virtual machine loading up. And in that virtual machine, we're now ready to start installing Ubuntu. We'll select English, and of course we're not going to be using a mouse in our environment, so we'll highlight it using the arrow keys. So we'll highlight English, and we've got various options to install. We're just going to go with install Ubuntu Server. When the window starts opening up, we'll then follow the steps down. We'll go English, English language. We can go for United Kingdom. We can go for Ireland. And now you can have the keyboard detected, but however, I normally just leave it no. And we can specify our Irish keyboard. And in this case, Irish again. So as you can see, it's very, very simple installation, and also very, very quick. So it's retrieving the various files, loading the various components, and we'll let that run for a few seconds in the background. After it's done its hardware detection, etc., we now see where we have both network adapters. Please note that the adapters are named ENP0S3 and ENP0S8. Again, these are gigabit Ethernet controllers as per our VirtualBox. So again, we can select these if we want, and we can select which one will be the primary one. It says choose the one to use as the primary network interface during installation. If possible, the first connected network interface found has been selected. So we can change them by using our arrow keys, but we'll just go with the default, the first one. And we'll see that it's attempting to do IP configuration for both IPv4 and IPv6. Configuring the network to DHCP. As you can see, it's very, very quick. Now we're asked for our name for our device. So host name, which will be what we'll see on the network, and I'm calling it Ubuntu1. So Ubuntu 1. Coming across to continue. Again, use your arrow keys, use your tab key, etc. You can go back, etc. if need be. Continue. And now it asks for a name for the user. A user account will be created for you to use instead the root account, okay, for non-administrative activities. When we have this set up, we'll be looking at using commands like sudo, which will allow us to raise or elevate our non-administrative rights. So full name for the user, I'm going to just go user1. It's entirely up to yourself. And then we have the username for the account. So we could have gone user1.blogs. Doesn't make a difference. User1 is fine. Password, and we'll keep all our passwords fairly simple. We can come down and we can show the password, so you can't go too far wrong. And if you look at that, it actually has uppercase. So remember that everything you do in Linux is case sensitive. So I'm putting these back in. And if we come down to show the password, you can now see it's password lowercase. So it's important that you understand that case sensitivity is very important within Linux. And we enter our same password again. And again, we can show the password if we want. Same password, and we tab down and we continue. Home directory, which is available for every single user in Ubuntu. It's basically like the home directory in Windows. So it says configure home directory for encryption. Any files stored there remain private even if your computer is stolen. We're not too concerned with encryption at this stage, so we're going to go with no. And it's now looking for time zone. If we haven't got internet access, it won't be able to pick it up. But in fact, you can see your time zone is Europe Dublin, which is fine. We'll accept that, and we go on to the next. Now we need to configure our partitions. Okay, different schemes. You can do it manually with guided partitioning. You still have a chance later to review and customize the results, which means that when you make changes, they're not written to the disk until you confirm. It says if you choose guided partitioning for an entire disk, you will next be asked which disk should be used. Remember, we've got 2 disks. So we're going to go guided, use entire disk, guided, use entire disk, and set up logical volume manager, which will allow us later on to reconfigure our partitions in that. So again, I'm going to go with the default. And there's our 2 disks, SCSI 3 and SCSI 4. And please note the names that come after that, SDA and SDB. So your first disk is SDA, your second disk is SDB, which is important that you understand the differences, because when we come to install our grub session, we'll be picking the disk that we want to install it on, so it'll be SDA. So we're going to work with SDA, and we are going to look at the logical volume manager. Okay, it says before people can configure, the partition scheme has to be written to disk. So do we want to write these settings to disk? We come across to the yes. The default is no, but we're going to go for yes. It says you may use the whole volume or guided partitioning or part of it. Well, in this case, we've only got 10 gig hard drive, so we're going to continue with the whole partition. And again, if you continue, will be written to disk. And if we have a quick look, it says the partition tables of the following devices have changed. So the following partitions are going to be formatted. The LVM or Logical Volume Manager, Ubuntu VG, LB root as ext4, which is the format type for Ubuntu ext4. And we're also going to have a swap file, which will be very similar to the page file within Windows. So that's fine. We are going to write the changes. So basically, we've more or less taken all the default settings. We haven't customized anything really. It now starts copying the data to disk, and that takes a few seconds. It's now running the post-installation configurations. It now asks us if we are going to use a proxy server. We don't have a proxy server in this environment, so we can simply click on continue. Finishing off this configuration, you can see there it says retrieving file number of 63. Do the countdown, which is generally reasonably accurate. It's on file 63 of 63. Doing some more files and some more files. Now, how do we want to apply updates? By default, updates need to be applied manually using package management tools, which we'll see later on. Or you can choose to have this system automatically download and install security updates, or you can choose to manage the system over the web as part of a group of systems using Canonical's landscape service. We are going to go with no automatic updates. We're going to manage these ourselves. So we enter on that, and now we're into our software selection. And this is where we could go in and install features or services like DNS server, LAMP server, various other servers. As you scroll down, you'll see them. We are just going to leave it with standard system utilities. So basically, we are just going to continue. If we want to install something, we're going to do it manually later on. So we're just continuing on that with the standard utilities. Again, it goes up and starts installing software. Eventually does a cleanup of the various temporary files that we use for part of the installation, and once the cleanup is done, we should be ready to continue on. It then continues on with installation of the Grub bootloader, the Grand Unified Bootloader, which basically is our menu system if we've got multiple installs, etc. Says this installation appears to be the only operating system. If so, it should be safe to install the Grub bootloader to the master boot record of your first hard drive, because this could be a situation where we've got multiple installs, such as Windows and Linux. Based on that, we should be able to carry on with our Grub bootloader to the master boot record. And this is where it asks us to select the location, what hard drive to install the Grub bootloader. Okay, so as we said earlier on, we are going to install it to SDA. Okay, SDB really hasn't been configured yet. So SDA will do. And we enter on that, and this is one of our last bits to do. Sets up the user's passwords, finishes the installation, and again we will then have a non-graphical interface available to us once the machine restarts. It then tells us that installation is complete. Boot your new system, make sure to remove the installation media, etc. So we can continue on that. And the system will automatically restart. Back into VirtualBox, boot up, and there's our Ubuntu, which will automatically start up, and we can see that the various system files and services will start up in the background. And that takes a few seconds to bring us up to a login screen. So based on that, we will end this video, and then our next video then will have us logging in for the first time onto our new Ubuntu server.